Greetings, Internet. Welcome to Aaron Plays, and I hope you're doing fantastically well. This will be the start of a series of episodes in how to play. Well, let me bring up the box. I know I used the intro, but there we go. Sixth Fleet. Now, my history with the game. I saw this game being played way back when I was living in South Africa. Some guy was playing it. And I thought, oh, that looks interesting, but never did anything with that thought. Um, didn't even know there was any more in the series. I just thought it looked interesting when I saw it on the table. Turning back to UK, again, I saw it being played. I don't remember, some convention or something. I thought, that looks interesting. And again, didn't think any more about it. And then for whatever reason, around about 2016, I watched a video on it or something like that. I thought, oh, that looks interesting. And I thought, actually, maybe, Mr. Sibbles, you should do something about it. So I did. And I did a trade for, yeah, typical me. All of them. I got Sixth Fleet, Second Fleet, Seventh Fleet, Fifth Fleet, and I think Third Fleet. All in one package on a trade using BGG. And I thought, well, I'm going to start the first one, even though I'd read a few articles by that time saying, the rules of the first one aren't the best. They modify them and such forth. I thought, don't care. I'm going to start with Sixth Fleet and I'm going to play it out of the box. And that was in 2017. And I played the first four scenarios a couple of times and thoroughly enjoyed them. So I thought, right, let's do one of the more intermediate ones, and started that. And I played a guy on Vassal overseas, and it just didn't work. The game just sort of died. That's quite happens often when you play someone you don't really know, and the game just doesn't continue for whatever reason. One of the main problems with play by email or whatever. Sometimes that happens. Maybe it was me. I don't know, but anyway. And I went on a long hiatus, and then recently, me and Harri have been playing Panzerblitz, and he's mentioned that he's been playing Sixth Fleet with someone. I said, I might get back into that. And we've subsequently played the first four introductory scenarios, and I recorded the logs, and that's what I'm going to go through as a teach of how to play Sixth Fleet, starting with scenario one, which this episode is focusing on, and then taking it further. If you guys are interested, let me know. And me and Harri are currently playing the fifth scenario, which is the first of the intermediate ones. And hopefully I can bring that, once we finish it, to the channel as well. But this is a how to play, and effectively scenario one focuses primarily, in fact almost exclusively, on submarines. It's not the most exciting scenario, I'll say that right out the bat, but it has the basics of how to play the game, and that's what you need to know when you're building yourself up. It's quite a extensive rule book, as normally done by Victory Games back in the day. It's double-sided, similar to the rule book that from Ambush, which I've been playing and highlighting. We don't need to know all of it, though. At about page 28, you have the advanced game rules. We won't be needing any of those at all. So our scenario is on page 26. And even before then, we've got things that we won't be using, like surface-to-surface missiles, airstrikes, and so on. We won't be using any of that information. So we'll be focusing on what is necessary for and how to play scenario one. Scenario two introduces effectively surface units against submarines. It's called Convoy to Naples. Go and figure that one out. The third one focuses on surface action. So it's fleets of ships using the surface missiles and such forth. And the fourth learning scenario will be on aircraft operations, which focuses on a US, I think it's the Nimitz. Is it the Nimitz? Well, it's definitely an aircraft carrier. Let's see what it is. It's the Kennedy. It's the Kennedy. Okay, and that's the 4 introductory scenarios. I will do an episode on each one. So let's go down the map and see what is actually going on. Okay, so there's the map. Now this is not, someone's converted the map so it actually looked prettier than the map that actually came in the game, and put it onto Vassal. Now we're only going to be playing in the Western Mediterranean and the Tyrrhenian Sea, as I read. There's no movement into the central Mediterranean at all. On the board here, we've got a few aircraft, and these are primarily used for recon and or tactical coordination. They could do an anti-submarine attack with them, but it's not very effective. The main units, though, are the submarines. So let's have a look at a game counter and work out the information on them. So if I bring up that, you can see it brings up the counter in the middle there. So there's a fair bit of information on that counter. And not all of it is going to be pertinent for this scenario, but we'll go through it all. So the big SO in the middle, and gives it away a little bit by the red counter, means it's a Soviet unit. It's a submarine, as denoted by the silhouette there, and also the code right at the bottom, which is SN. So it's a nuclear submarine. If we look at a different one, that's an SN? Are they all nuclears? Oh, they are. Okay. I know we have an SS there, which is like one of your diesel submarines that the Soviets still had. Anyway, let's go back to this. Right, so the 5 and the 7. The 5 is its movement value. When it's activated to move, it can move 5 hexes. This is one of the Soviet super subs. It's very fast. The 7 is its defense value. The higher the number, the better. You need to cause a hit, you have to score over half of that value, and to sink it, you have to score the full value. If you score half the value, you damage it, and that's when it becomes flipped. There we go. You've got the damage side, big D in the middle to denote that it's damaged. Okay, and then we can flip it back. All right, so that's the 5 and the 7. So the top one, movement, bottom one below that is the damage value. The bottom number, the 9, is its anti-submarine warfare number. Again, the higher the better. 9 is pretty much as high as I've seen a counter have in the game. Moving across to the other side, the N, that would be its anti-aircraft value. N means none. Moving up just above that, you'll see a little number that says 18. That's its torpedo value when it's attacking with torpedoes. We won't be using that. The submarines fight each other using anti-submarine warfare. So they're using the 9. And the numbers above that, not all subs haven't. The 6 and the 1. The 1, well, the 6 are its surface-to-surface missiles, and the 1 is the range that they can use the surface-to-surface missiles. So range 1. Now, if we look at this Soviet unit here, as you can see, its movement value is considerably less. It's only 2 movement as opposed to the 5 that this unit has. So diesel submarine, this is a nuclear submarine of a lower quality. It's got a movement value of 3. Okay, bigger torpedo number, anti-submarine value of 6, and no surface-to-surface missiles and no anti-aircraft value. So that's the Soviets looked at. Shall we look at a NATO submarine? There we go. US, green, gives it away again. The 4 and the 7, so it's got a 4 movement, so it's a little bit slower than the Soviet unit. The Soviet super sub. Defense value is the same. The anti-submarine value is the same. It's got no anti-aircraft value. That's the N in the bottom right-hand corner. And it also has surface-to-surface missiles, 9 with a range of 2. Okay. So that's the submarines. Now let's have a look at an aircraft. So on the aircraft counter, there's got a range. That's the top left-hand number is the 60. It's got a range of 60 hexes, so it's quite considerable. We will not be requiring that at all in this particular scenario. The 50 and the 4 are, it's again surface-to-surface missiles, attack strength of 50 at a range of 4 hexes. So they can be a fair distance away. The T-16 denotes what type of aircraft it is. The N below that is its anti-submarine warfare value, as in none. And you've got the ATX, which determines what type of aircraft it is, an attack aircraft. And the 1 next to that is its air-to-air combat value. Not very good. And the N, little N just above that, is its bombing value. It doesn't carry bombs, it carries surface-to-surface missiles. So that's the Soviet air unit in the game, and there's only one of them, and that's going to be primarily used, in fact, all likelihood will be used for just recon. The US have got 4 units, air units, and that one here, one here, one over here, and one way over here. Okay, they're all the same. They've got the same range. That's the 70. Attack value of 20 and 2, so surface missiles with a 2 range. It's got an anti-submarine warfare, which the Soviet unit doesn't have, of 2. The RCN is denoting it is a recon unit, and it does have a 1 on an air-to-air value as well. So again, not very good, and it has no bombing value. And the P3 denotes what type of aircraft it is. So there's 4 of those, and we'll go into, when we're going through the game, what they can do and how we're doing it. So, right, so that's all the units. We're only going to go through the parts of the sequence of play that are pertinent to this particular scenario. So what do we have to do in this scenario? Anti-submarine warfare in the Western Mediterranean. There's a whole spiel about the backgrounds. I'm not going to go through the details of that. It then tells me where to deploy the units. That's what you're seeing on there. It then tells me the special rules. Okay, so although I've mentioned surface-to-surface missiles, it says no units can use its surface-to-surface missiles in this scenario. It's not teaching that. This scenario is teaching how to use subs against subs. Base hexes can't be entered. Now, base hex are these in and around the board. Okay. So is this working? There we go. That's the base. That's the base. So it's saying submarine units can never enter a base hex, friendly or enemy. In other words, you can't hide. Units can never enter Atlantic or Central Mediterranean. It's keeping your focus on the Western Mediterranean and the Tyrrhenian sea zones. Air units can move into and through hexes of all countries. So they can fly where they want on the board. Air units cannot be placed on strategic interception or mining missions. So when we come to the strat phase, there's 4 things that they can do. They can only do 2 of them, which we'll go to when we get to that part. They can be a maximum of 2 action segments per action phase. Okay, we'll go through what the action segments and the action phase are when we get to there. And game length, the game lasts 9 game turns or until all of one player's submarines are destroyed, whichever comes first. And the victory condition, the player wins if he destroys all of his opponent's submarines. The game ends and both players still have submarines on the map. The game ends in a draw. So it's 9 turns, submarine destruction. There are 4 Soviet subs here, 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 and here, and only 2 NATO subs here and here. Okay, but the NATO's got 4 air assets. Soviets have only got 1. Swings, roundabouts. So now you know what is necessary to win. Let's actually, and I'm going to use the sequence of play to teach the game. Okay. So the first thing is I'm going to turn 1 is an AM turn. Okay, that's over here. And in the AM turn is when the strategic cycle is done. Now, in the strategical cycle, there are various things that can be done, such as political events, random events, reinforcements phase. None of that is in this, and most of those all are advanced game options. We are looking at the strategical air phase, where both players will allocate air assets to strategical missions. And we'll go through that using what me and Harri did in this phase. Now, the first thing about the strategy maps, they are hidden between the players. So let me just bring up, because I had to go through the switch sides to NATO, which allowed me to have access to the NATO map, which I can't seem to be bringing up. Okay, there we go, strategical air. So let's just bring this in and zoom it up. Right. So we're only looking at the Atlantic zone, well, primarily the Western Mediterranean and the Tyrrhenian Sea zones. Those are the only two that are in this particular scenario and where the aircraft are allocated. So they're taken, you have an allocation segment, and I say this is my display, and Harri's is a Soviet. I can't see his. You see over here, it's grayed out. What that actually means when we're playing it play by email, we use a little notepad. Where is it? There, notes. Here we go. Let me bring that up. And we can have delayed notes built in here, and we can write them and then reveal them as we need to. So I was written there. I have moved my air onto the strategical allocation display and written the deployment as a note. Okay. Public. And there it is. All 4 air units to operate in Western Mediterranean, 2 on recon, 2 on tactical coordination. So technically, those are tactical coordination, and those 2 are on recon. All right. That's the mining that this can't be used, and that's the intercept can't be used. If we were playing with more aircraft could be allocated to intercept into those zones and then intercept the other guys that are on missions when they're revealed. What the other boxes do relate what to the adjacent zones they are. So this little arrow shows that the Western Mediterranean is adjacent to the Atlantic, is also adjacent to the Tyrrhenian Sea. And when an aircraft has finished its mission, you place it in one of these zones, which tells you how far they are from each zone. So it tells you that one zone away from the Atlantic and the Tyrrhenian Sea, if they're in the Western Mediterranean. They're two zones away from the Adriatic and the Central Med, and they're 3 zones away from the Aegean and the Eastern Mediterranean. That's important when it comes to range, because the zones are related to, and let's just zoom a little bit on there, that little display there. Ranges of air units on strategical missions. If you allocate one and you look at the range on the counter, so remember the Soviet counter had a range of 60, the American recon aircraft had a range of 70, so we've got 60 or more, they can be moved 3 zones away and return back 3 zones. And if they've got a range of 19 or less, they can only go to 1 zone. So that's how you allocate your aircraft, and how I allocate mine. So just move the move marker there, and that's all you need to know. I've allocated 2 and 2. Okay, now this log is running. I will do my detection phase now, as there is no strategical interception, because the mission's not is told not to do so. So I'm just carrying on through my turn, and the next phase in the strategical cycle is the detection phase. The detection phase is only in the strategical the strategical cycle, right, in the AM turn. Detection does occur at other times, but the detection phase is only in the strategical cycle. So in the detection phase, players now place detection markers on surface and submarine units that occupy limited or extended detection zones. We'll go into that in detail. In addition, for each air unit on the strategical reconnaissance mission in a zone, the owning player can place one detection marker on an enemy submarine or up to two markers on surface units per unit on the recon. So we know that I've got two units on tactical coordination. I've got two units on recon. So that means I can place two markers on one marker on two submarines. Yeah, get in the right order. Okay. As I have two recon air units on duty in the Western Mediterranean Sea, so only in the Western Mediterranean Sea, I can place a detected on two subs. And there we go. That's that little green marker. So let's zoom in a little bit on the actual what's going on here. So I've placed detection markers on those two submarines. That's my recon air done. Okay. And I've gone over to you to reveal your air missions detection phase and start the activity cycle. We'll go into detail what that means. But technically on here, those two will now be marked. Return to base. They've done what they need to do. So the next log I got from Harry, he says my T-16, that's his aircraft here, is on reconnaissance on the Mediterranean Sea Zone, detecting the Baltimore. Okay, so let's just all of that. Let's zoom out a little bit. Boop. All right, okay. So that aircraft there, I'm only going to use my display because I have no access to his. So his was in that area there, and then it's then done as it detects the Baltimore. All right, so presuming he's going to place that marker. And there it is, detected US. So to be able to attack something in this game, you've got to detect it. There's a few other phases before we go into the activity cycle, but that is the strategical cycle that we're using in this scenario, the first one. And again, it only occurs in the AM turns. Right. And then we'll roll to see who goes first. Okay. I need to explain that. So we've done the strategical cycle, which is done on the AM turns. We then go into the activity cycle, which is done in all game turns. And there are various phases in this as well. You've got CAP, combat air patrol phase. You've got a minesweeping phase. You've got a replenishment phase in the advanced game only. None of that is applying in this scenario. What is, though, is the action phase. And this is the meat and potatoes of the game. In the action phase, there are potentially three action segments, though this scenario did define that there's only two because we haven't got a third arm in this, i.e. the surface. In each action segment of the three, you will activate one of your services, either your air, your submarine, or your surface. So, and then in the action phase, we've got the first action segment. A die is rolled to determine the first player. On an even roll, it's the US. On an odd roll, it is the Soviet. Then when you come, and then we activate either our air or our submarines or our surface in this case. So the player announces which type of units he will activate this segment, either his surface, submarine, or air. After the first player has finished all actions with the units of the type he chose, the second player selects a type of unit to be activated and carries out all the actions with these types. And it doesn't have to be the same type. So NATO could, in the first action segment, could activate his air, and the Soviets decide, I'm going to activate my submarines. Then, once both of those have done one segment, and that's what these counters are here, once they've each done one segment, then the second segment's done with a new die roll. So it's quite possible that, say, NATO activates first in the first segment, then Soviets will activate. Die roll occurs, then it's an odd number. The Soviets will go first in the second segment. After the second segment's completed, there is a third segment. And that is the action phase. And I say that is the main thing that the game uses for the action of the game, hence the name, action phase. So we'll roll to see who goes first. And yeah, we used Vassal dice on that one. Die roll 3, so that's Soviet. Soviets will go ahead. Obviously, it's subs activating because we've really only got submarines now. I have got air assets, but I've allocated them all to the strategical airspace. So there's no actual air units of mine that can activate. And you see, there's no air units on the board. They've all been removed because they're all sitting on the air display here. So there's only one actual action segment. And as he says, obviously, it'll be subs activating. Okay. Oh, right. So how do they activate? Right. Well, submarines. Let's see here. All right. There we go. Before. So this is undetected submarine. Let's zoom in a little bit on him. So I went through that. He's got a movement value of 3. Okay. When you activate a unit, let me clarify. When you activate submarines are activated individually. Surface units can be activated by their task force, and air units normally 4 units at a time. We'll go into those when we actually play a scenario with those in detail. But for this, submarines are activated individually. The actions of a submarine unit must be completed before another unit is activated. So what activated units can do? Each submarine is activated individually. A submarine can move and perform one attack in any order during activation phase. So it can attack and then move, or it can move and then attack. Okay. So let's see what he's doing with his submarine here. So that's 1, 2, 3. Okay. Moving the next one. Remember, this one has got a movement value of 5. That's the top left-hand number, 5. So he's moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're closing in on my unit here, which is the Baltimore. All right. Now, I don't know why these ones have got movement arrows on them, but there you go. He's only got a movement of 2, so I assume that's it. And he's got a movement of 3. All done. Over to the US. Right, and I made a note there. The Nezhin is fast. So yeah. Next up, US sub moves off board. I don't know why it's moving off board, but there we go. Oh, let's see what I'm going to do with my subs. Right, so the Baltimore doesn't like to be taken on 2 to 1. He's slower than the Nez, but he's faster than the Sumi. These names, by the way, are abbreviations, and the rulebook is very polite, and it actually has what all the abbreviations equal. However, my Russian pronunciation is not great. So there I go, getting away, and then I bring the drum into. I have no air units on board, so no air phase. That's the end of the actual activation segment 1. So we're into turn 2. There is only one action segment in turn 1 because we only had submarines. Let me just bring up now the game turn track. I know that there's one at the bottom here of the board, but in actual fact we use the off-board one because we also then use these segment counters. Okay, so turn 2, and we roll, and we're still using the die rolls on Vassal at this point. And he rolled a 5, and it's the Russians are up. So it's Russian submarines. So that meant he had, in turn 1, it was mine first, Then, no, it was his first, then mine, and then in turn 2 it continues. Russians. Nezin gets to attempt to attack the Baltimore. Okay. Okay. So it's moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There he goes. Let's zoom in on the action there. Okay. My unit was detected, so he's able to attack it. And his will become detected in a moment, but we'll go through that when it arrives. So, attempting ASW attack. Anti-submarine warfare attack. So let's bring up the attack tables. We'll go under here. There we go. There they are. Right. Can I bring that up any bigger? Unfortunately not. Okay. So the combat results table. So let's go through and break down this down. We're mainly looking at this column here because when it comes to anti-submarine warfare combat, you've got the attacker, what it does, defender, and it says quite clear there is no defense die roll on the ASW combat. So you don't have to worry about the defense die roll section here. When we do have something that needs that, we'll go through that. So we're just looking at the attack number here. And that's the number that is rolled with modifiers. This here is the combat values. 1 to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, and so on. So if we look at the submarine, Soviet nuclear submarine Nezin, he's got an ASW of 9. So he will be attacking on this column here, the 9 to 14. Okay, so attempting an ASW attack. 6-sided dice, he rolls a 6. So he's in the 9 here, he rolls a 6, which is over here. He causes 4 damage. All right. So he's got 5. Some kind of hit was scored, Baltimore damage. So I'm not quite sure how he got 5. Unless my eyes don't line up. Yeah, 6 is a 4, which is enough. Because let's go through that. So let's just move that marker off for the moment. All right. My damage value is at 7 there. Movement 4, damage value 7. To cause damage on a unit, you've got to score more than half the score value. So half that value. So a 3 would have been a miss, a 4 or high. So 0 to 3 is a miss or superficial. A 4 to 6 is damaged and the counter will be flipped. A 7 or higher would have been an instant sink. Okay. Movement trails. Go away. Never right. So, and there we go. I just flipped my counter over. It is damaged on the first strike. And that means he's now detected. So there's detection in the recon strategical warfare phase or strategical cycle. And if you attack and the opponent survives, you become detected as well. Obviously, they're radioing in. Bloody big nasty Soviet submarine over here. And then, as Harri says, Nezin gets detected. Assume he's now coming up, but he can't catch me. All right, he's then moving another Soviet submarine there and there, closing in on the drum. Okay. Oh, yeah, so I was supposed to declare subs activating first, but I guess that is quite clear because we've only got subs. Right, so I've gone back. So then my turn to sub. Baltimore will ASEW attack on Soviet super sub. Now, so as do remember, you can attack and then move, or you can move, then attack. So Baltimore ASW attack on Soviet super sub using the 2 points of attack 1 I allocate in the strategical warfare phase. So let's have a look what I'm doing. All right, there's my counter. My ASW value has dropped because I've been damaged. So let's just flip that back. So it's dropped from a 9 ASW value to a 5. Okay, so bringing up the combat charts, I've dropped effectively 2 columns. They're not nice, a bit rude. And with a 6 dial, I'll only cause 3 damage. 3 damage is not enough on that Soviet unit. All right, let's get the section out of the way. Because he's got a damage value of 7. Remember, I need to score 4 or more to actually damage him. So that's why I decided to use my tactical air. I've still got 2 units allocated to tactical air support or tactical coordination. And what do? They give me, on the modifiers at the bottom, tactical coordination +1 for each air unit on a tactical coordination mission allocated to the attack. Maximum 3 air units combat to the combat. So I'm effectively giving myself die roll modifiers. And as I said on there, using the 2 points of attack I allocated in the strategical warfare phase. So ASW of 5 +2 on the dice. Rolled a 6. Now you notice this is why we don't like Vassal dice. All it's rolling is 6s. It's blinking irritating. Now, for me, that's good at this point because that's a 5 hit, which it also damages it. Let's go and have a look at the combat results table. So I'm using the 5 column. I rolled a 6 +2 is 4, which is enough to damage the whatever it is. Okay. So I've just damaged his ship. And then I'm moving 1, 2. I noticed my speed's dropped as well. He was moving at 4. He's now moving at 3 because he's damaged. Okay. I assume at that point, let's go over here. What's going to happen with the drum? I want to go and engage those. Remember, to win, I need to sink all his subs, and he needs to sink all mine. Now the drum attacks the beaning with 9 ASW. So I'm attacking this unit here. Okay. 6 side up. See, there's another 6. This, and I'll emphasize why I don't like Vassal dice. This bot likes rolling 6s. Glad it's not Panzer Blitz at the moment, because in Panzer Blitz, 6s are rubbish, and that's what I kept on rolling. Okay, that's 5 damage, so just flipped. I notice better just clarify. With my tactical air, I can only use them once. In the 3 turns in between. So those 2 are actually there. So that all aircraft are therefore ready to return to base. So we damaged the being. What is the name of that unit? Can't see it on the list here. It must be here somewhere. Nope, so that means its name is actually not abbreviated. That's its actual full name. BYNGI. Whew. How do you pronounce that? Bing. There we go. Bing. Or Bingy. Yeah. Okay, so continuing. So that's 5 damage done to it. It's flipped over to its damage side. That ends turn 2 because we've only got 2 lots of aircraft each. Okay. Turn 3. Roll to see who goes first. Roll a 6, NATO. Me. But yet, have you noticed, yet another 6. So that's rolled pretty much 5 6s in a row. Let me roll some dice to see if I can break the loop. Consider rolling dice at that point. Okay. With no attack remaining, the Baltimore does not want to hang around. Okay. So trying to get out of dodge. The drum attacks again, attacks the Bing again. So we're still focusing back on here. The drum attacks the Bing, ASW 9, and finally rolls a 1. I broke the cycle. Bring back the 6 as all is forgiven. Because with a 1, I'm on the 9 column here. With a 1, okay, I only do 2. That's not enough because his damage value is 6, as you can see there. So if I'd caused a 3, that would have sunk him. I think that would have been on anything on the 9 column. Yeah, 1 or 2 is 2. So I needed 3, 4, 5, or 6 to sink him, and I rolled a 1. As I said, bring back the 6s, but we at least broke that cycle. 2 damage is not enough. Then I decide to move. I decide to have a rethink on that move. That's better. Let's rather than move towards 4 Soviet submarines coalescing on him. Let's try and get a little bit out of dodge. Okay, to you for your turn 3. So as Harri says, this game generally rewards rolling 6s, so should be your thing because I kept on rolling 6s in Panzerblitz. Okay. He's protecting his subs a little bit here. You can see. And he manages to, this is the, which submarine is this? The DRABV. That does sound like an abbreviation. Is Drabov. Okay, the Drabov. If there's any Russians watching this, I do apologize for my pronunciation. That makes him, well, he was detected anyway, and he rolls a 2, which is not enough to damage, because my damage protection on my submarine is 6. Okay. Hurts my OCD mind at the counters do not snap to the hex grid. Yeah, I agree. Anyway, that wraps up the night turn. So now the terminal cycle goes. Strat air returns and detections are removed. So, yeah. Let me just zoom out a little bit. Here, though, detections remain because we're adjacent to each other. Here, I think the detections are kept since the units have sufficient ASW value to spot each other. Yeah, I think there's a value of ASW. Let me just double check how much you need for detection. It's an ASW, and it's a reward for value of 4 or more, which I've got 9 and he's got 6. That's the bottom left-hand numbers. Maintains their detection. So the detections are removed from all the other ships, submarines on the board at that point. And this is in the, so after the 3 turns, we have what's called a terminal cycle, where, as we've just done, strategical air missions termination phase, all air units on strategical air display are returned to their parent aircraft carrier or base X in the zones from which they started. Surface and submarine units that are not in enemy detection zones have the detection markers removed. And that would then move us on to turn 4. So you can see his aircraft is returned. Making a note of my strat air. So I need to return my aircraft. There's one that was here, one here, one Naples. It can go back to any of the bases that are and Messina, I think. Let me just double check that. So we're beginning turn 4. Let's bring up the game turn track. And it's all clear from there. It's another AM cycle, so we have another strategical interface where the only thing we're really doing in here is allocating our aircraft to the strat missions. And he mentions here making a note of my strat air. So that's using the notes section, which I mentioned earlier. There we go. Okay. And now NATO. That's the date I've done it, so I can't cheat on it. US turn 2, it actually should be US turn 4 Stratair. I made the second half. So Harry, he's done his. Hi Harry, I'll place my Stratair. So let me just place it. Where did I place it? Scene note. So that activated a new note. Yeah. And then when it comes to revealing, he then says, right. So what's actually happening? One of us takes a note of where they're going to put their Stratair. The other player then puts their aircraft in a different log onto their strategical air display and tells the opponent where his place is. Then log file goes back and it says and reveals where their Stratair is. So I'm just allocating mine on this display and I'm doing pretty much slightly different. Okay. I'm putting 1 into recon in the Western Mediterranean, 2 on tactical support, or TAC coordination, and 1 on recon in the Mediterranean Sea this time. Okay. And then doing the detection phase. Okay. Let's just have a look what's in the notes section now. I've declared 1 on recon in the Western Mediterranean, 1 on recon in the Mediterranean Sea, and 2 on TAC in Western Med, and that's what it would look like on the display that way. All right, so let's bring that down. We don't need to keep seeing that. And then I'll do the detection phase. For myself, I have got one in Western Mediterranean and 1 in the Mediterranean Sea. There we go, and they're placed. And I'll assume he detects the Baltimore. He's only got 1 aircraft, okay? And it hasn't got a ASW value like my aircraft have, so you can't really allocate them to do an ASW attack in the normal action sequences. So, and he's already detected the only other unit I've got on the board. So, hence why I said I will assume you detect the Baltimore. Now, obviously, when there's more aircraft and more stuff that can happen in the strategical, there can be it's a whole like mini game in its own right. First activation cycle of turn 4. Roll for whom goes first. It's a 3. Soviets. Hi, Harry. Okay, there's a repeat of the log there, so let me pause that. You don't want to see that again. So as Harry says, subs activate. Okay. Keeping that out of harm's way and then moving that and attacking. So let's zoom in on the action. All right, so he's attacking with an ASW of 6. ASW of 6. And there we go, another 6. 4 damage, sinks the Baltimore. So we'll look at that. ASW is 6. Roller is 6. 4 damage, sinks the Baltimore. Okay. For some reason it's duplicating these markers. Let's delete that. We don't want extra markers. ASW 6 here as well. So this is attacking with an ASW of 6. This time it's a roll of 2. No hit on the Drummond. 6 with a 2 only does 2 damage. He's got no modifiers. Okay, so currently there are 4 Soviet subs to my 1. My sub will activate. Attack the Drabbo, whatever it was, with an ASW of 9. I will add attack of 1 for a +1 modifier. Roll of 5 becomes a 6, so 4 damage, damages it. So he's now got 2 damaged subs, 3 damaged subs. 1, 2, and he's got 3 damaged subs, and I've got 1 sunk. And we've got these detection markers floating around, literally. Let's get them out of the way. Okay. And technically that aircraft is in the display as well. Shouldn't be on the board. Right. So I've used one of my aircraft, so I'm returning that over here. So I've still got 1 in the bank, as it were. Right. That was all that happened on turn 4. Turn 5, PM turn. Okay, so let's bring the game turn tracker up. As you can see, what's actually happening here is we're moving one of these down here, and then that goes there. Then that's the end of the turn, because air have been all allocated to strategical air, so there's no air segment. Oh, and there's me Soviet kills. Right, who goes first for NATO? Yay. So I move my sub around, and I think, wait a minute, I could actually move through him. Could I go through you? The answer is yes, I could have done. Anyway, actual rethink, I decide to go there, just there. Now attack. ASW of 9 with attacker +1 from the air, because that air can be used at any time in those 3 for that day, which is the AM, the PM, or even the night. Roll a 6, grab goes to the bomb. I have sunk a Soviet submarine. Yes. And that back to him. So we are into now turn 6. Okay. He's on, by the way, attack air only gets to support 1 attack and returns to the base. That's what I've been doing anyway. Turn 6, first activation roll, 5. Soviets. He's bringing his, he knows he's got to sink mine. I've got to sink 3 of his. 4 being, that was my hero sub on the other game. Oh, he's talking about another game he's playing. Anyway, back to the US. Anyway, it makes a difference to right. It's true. Turn 6. Right, that's actually just a repeat of what we just seen, because that's where our logs crossed. Blah, blah, blah. As I say, this is just a training exercise played out on computers in the Kremlin. The drum is so slow. Yeah, it's only got a speed of 3. And we got that detection marker should be on it. ASW of 9 still. So again, we're looking at 9. I need to get 3 or more. So it's a 3, 4, 5, or a 6 will sink him. And 4. 3 is enough to sink. So it's now 2 Soviet subs sunk to 1 US. That's looking a bit better. Strat air returns. It's the end of the turn 6 cycle. Detection removal. And we move on to turn 7, which is an AM turn. So we then reallocate the aircraft. Strat air allocation. I have done a delayed note with my strat air placement. Have a look and see if some delayed notes coming up. Oops. There we go. NATO's turn. So if I click the reveal, it then says what's actually in that note, which he can't click if because he's a Soviet. All right. Well, what it effectively looks like to you, for yours though, both of ours are fairly obvious because we haven't got that much. I've allocated one in each C zone for attack and tactical air support and recon, so I can detect both of his submarines because he's got one in each C zone. And I say it's pretty obvious at this stage. Right, I have therefore two TAC air available, but where? Again, one in each C zone, but he wouldn't know that. Await the delayed note release. I will roll for who goes first this turn. I'm now owed this. Roll of a 3. No, of course not. Soviets go. For you. So, subs obviously, and he's coming in to try and sink the drum. Now, is that short for something? Drummond? Yes, I know all you American guys are going, yeah, yes, of course it is. United States. Drum. Now, why isn't that in the abbreviation list? Oh, I did say there's an abbreviation list, and it's not on there. Or if it is, I'm not seeing it. From a game point of view, it doesn't really matter, but it would have been nice to know. Okay. So, is he successful in his attack here? ASW 6, roll of a 6, another 6. That damages the drum. Comes in now. Is this the coup de grace? ASW 5, rolls a 3. My defense value is still 6. He needs to do 3 or more. ASW of 5. It's in that column. With a 3, he only does 2. Not enough to sink. 2 damage, not enough. Hi, Harry. My sub. Attacks the Sumi. An ASW 5 with +1 for the attack. Reveal my strat air in the notes delayed section. Need a good roll. Roll of 3 +1, 4. 2 hits. Not enough. All right, trying to get away now. That's better. Turn 8. Okay. Who goes first? I do. With the 6, remember it. Evens is NATO. Attack again on the Sumi as I'm adjacent. ASW 5, but no attack as the other areas in the Mediterranean Sea. Need one of my 6s. Roll of 2. Missed. Run away. Right. Okay. What's going on here? Why is there lots of multiple clicking required to get the game moving further? Hello. Let's pause that. I sent a message over to you to hunt me down like a stray dog. Okay. So he attacks. ASW 6. All right. What does he need to knock me out? ASW 6. He needs a 4 or higher. He needs to just get 3 damage. 4 or higher. I roll a 1. No effect. In comes the NEZ submarine. SW5 rolls a 2. No luck finding the drum. It is the Drummond, so why is that not in the abbreviations? Turn end. We're into the last turn. Okay. Turn 9, final turn, first activation. It's NATO. Okay. Let's fire and run. Fire at the Sumi. ASW 5. Roll of 2. Not enough. Run, boys. To you. ASW 6. He rolls a 2. And ASW 5. He rolls a 4. Neither is enough because he's got an ASW attack on the Sumi of 5. 5 with a 4 is only 2 damage. All 9 turns done. It's a draw. A draw indeed. On to scenario 2, and then we dice for the sides. So that's it. I just say that there's not much to it, but you now should have a good handle on what to do with submarines and what to do, how to look at that combat results table and how to use this a little bit. We'll be going into a lot more detail of that as and when we require it in further scenarios, when there's a lot more things that can occur on there. And also when there's more options on the turn track. But that gets at least, or hopefully, a basic follow through. So let's bring us back to the top for my end of session chat. Okay, I hope that wasn't too odious. It's to teach you the game. The next scenario, as I say, is called Convoy to Naples, where you will have the Soviet submarines trying to sink the convoy ships. There's a couple of frigates as well, and then some special rules. But we'll go through that when we come to the next episode. And that's down to you guys. Let me know what you thought in the comments. If you did like the video, please hit the like. It helps the channel. And whatever the algorithm does in the background. If you haven't subscribed to my channel and you'd like to do so, and it seems like a lot of my viewers aren't actually subscribers, again, it helps the channel. You also hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever I upload a video. Other than that, as I say, comments, always appreciated. Let me know what you thought. Could I have done it a bit differently in a bit more interesting way? Don't know. As I say, next time we'll be bringing in surface, and submarines, so you can have the submarines using torpedoes, and we'll have anti-submarine as the frigates try to find the subs or escort them, the convoy ships. But that, as I say, is in the next scenario. I haven't really got much more to add. Sixth Fleet, the rules are, once you start bringing all the other interactions of the air and the surface, and then eventually logistics, you can have to start worrying about ammo and supply and fuel and such forth. It becomes a lot bigger, but you don't start by running, do you? Well, okay, we did in our early days, didn't we? It's got a campaign game. Let's do the whole campaign and then get lost. Yeah. Start small. Baby steps. Submarines, done. But until next time, guys, play games, have fun, buy internet,